Financial.com. That's PANKONIN Financial.com. And while at my website, click on past shows or subscribe to our program on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or Amazon Music. You can also sign up for my newsletter or click the link at the top of the homepage to get the latest retirement guide. Well, today I'm really excited to be in studio recording with our co-host, Tony Shore. This is my first experience doing it live in person and on video as well. So
yeah, usually you're in your office in your office studio, and yes, I'm usually here in the office in my studio. So we're not that far apart. No. You know, Arden Hills to Belle Plaine. You just drove up here. How long was that?
Yeah, about an hour drive. It's not too bad. With
a little over an hour.
Yeah, luckily I wasn't during rush hour traffic when I came up.
So, that's nice. Yeah. Middle of a work day. Hopefully that wasn't too bad. It seems like traffic in and around the cities, though, is always terrible. You wonder, we were talking before the show, you're like, don't these people have jobs or homes, right?
Yeah. I'm the only one that has to go anywhere during the middle of the day. Right. Everybody else should be working.
Yeah. I'm the only one who really should be out here on this road right now. That's the thought that always runs through my head, and I always chuckle. I'm like, wait, what are these people doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Shouldn't they be doing something somewhere else is what they should be doing. But this is great to be in person, to record, Ashton. Yeah. You know, you and I have known each other a while. We've recorded the show, but we never do it in person. We're always remote. Yeah. And it's just technology, right? You can do podcasts with anybody anywhere these days. Yeah. But I'll tell you, it's much more fun in person, isn't it?
No, it's great. And it's not that far. Maybe we'll have to start recording all the time in person.
Yeah, it isn't that far. That's true. That is true. Well, and you've got a great show lined up for us today. I just want to tell you, I have been doing great. You can see from everything going on here in the Gradient Financial offices, I've been busy.
Yes, you have been, Tony. Very busy.
Yeah, not as busy as you, though. I mean, with everything going on, end of the year planning, tax, people are looking, what do I need to do for my finances as far as taxes are concerned, RMDs. So we're going to go over some of that year-end financial stuff.
Yeah, year-end checklist, if you want to call it that. Okay. And some may say, well, it's only November, Ashton. Why are we doing the year-end checklist? We're closer than you think. And a lot of the clients come knocking at my door December 30th to make that last contribution. But it's definitely something we try and stay ahead of in our office. A lot of our stuff we try and get knocked out by October. So that way we can, if we have a few stragglers, some people that are doing that procrastination, we can make sure we get it wrapped up before the year end.
Right. Because if you wait until 2 weeks before the end of the year, you're into Christmas and New Year territory. Yeah. Plus, I know that the third party money managers that you work with, like Charles Schwab
custodians,
custodians, I should say, those custodians, if you're turning in paperwork, and you expect them to turn it around in 2 days.
Not going to happen.
And they're going to say, well, this will take 2 weeks. Yeah. Well, wait, that's not until next year. I need it for this year. Yeah. So that's why, not only should we talk about this in November, next year we might want to bump the show up to October 1st.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's, those custodians, they have their cutoff timelines too. And anything a lot of times it's December 1st to get some of these things done. And then they'll say best efforts to get it processed if it comes in after that. But again, if everybody waits for that last minute, they're not going to be able to process them all. So.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. So on this year-end checklist, Ashton, what's one of the first things you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, and it's a conversation Kayla and I had before we came up here, my office assistant, RMDs. It's very important to make sure you get those RMDs taken care of, and that's required minimum distribution.
Required minimum distributions, if you're over a certain age, you have to take that money out of IRAs and 401ks, don't you?
Yeah. Now the IRS has changed that rule, and it's continuing to morph a little bit, but currently the age of 73, if you're older than 73, you have to take that distribution. It used to be 70 and a half, and it was 72. It will be 75. Coming up here in the next couple of years. But it's really important to get that required minimum distribution out, because otherwise you get a penalty from the IRS, and that can be substantial. I believe it's up to 50% of that required minimum distribution. And so let's say that RMD is $2,000 if you don't get that out, you could be penalized $1,000 for not getting that out. And
up to.
I
think in most cases it's 25, and in some cases if you are prompt about telling them and beg for forgiveness, they might lower it to 10, but between 10 and 50 on top of what you owe for taxes. Am I right?
Correct. Yeah. So you're gonna owe taxes on that required minimum distribution at your normal income tax bracket. And then again, the penalty if you don't do it. So
yeah. Nobody likes penalties. Those are things you don't have to pay if you stay on top of it. Yeah. But if someone is working with you, for your clients that you work with and do money management and financial planning for, they don't need to worry about it because you get that all set up for them well in advance, right?
Yeah, we do. We make sure a lot of ours are systematic, and we have them done in October. That way, if we go and check our reports and anybody that hasn't taken their RMD, we usually have a pretty short list that, hey, we got to get after these people to make sure it gets taken care of. And then a lot of times we consolidate assets here as well to make sure we're aware of all RMDs that are required, because any IRAs or old 401ks that are sitting out there, you do have to take that required minimum distribution if you're no longer working there and over that RMD age.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, and so RMDs are important, required minimum distributions from your retirement accounts, from most of them. Roth IRAs, you don't have to take RMDs from. Is that correct?
Correct. The Roth IRAs, they're after-tax money. It's going to be tax-free to you, and you aren't required to take those distributions.
Yeah, which is one advantage a Roth has.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a big advantage. And then also the other advantage on that Roth is it goes to your beneficiaries tax-free as well, if you still have assets in that Roth.
2 words I love when they're together: tax-free, right? Right. Tax separately, no. But that's great. So RMDs are number 1 on the year-end checklist. Make sure you have that under control. And if you have questions about that, make sure you give Ashton and his team a call at Pankin and Financial. What's next?
Yeah, the next thing is more along that tax line is just making sure you're doing the correct withholdings on those distributions. So when we take these required minimum distributions, we typically withhold tax so you don't have a big surprise tax bill at tax time.
Or any distribution from a retirement account,
that's
right?
True, yeah.
You have to watch tax. Is that true?
Yeah, that's correct. Again, traditional IRAs, the Roth IRAs, you don't have to worry about that.
Sure.
And so, if you're in that distribution phase, I guess, not just required minimum distribution, we want to make sure our withholdings are correct. A lot of times we reach out to accountants. We get permission from clients to speak with their accountants to make sure we're all on the same page on that tax withholding. So we're not left with that surprise at tax time when you meet with your accountant.
So watch those withdrawals and make sure you're withholding enough for taxes.
Yes,
that's important
for sure.
Yeah, that's huge. And I know that you have all that planned in with people you work with, and that's why it's so important to work with a trusted financial services professional. I'm not going to name names, Ashton Pankin, but I know a guy.
I know a guy.
Yeah, I know a guy. I know a guy who may originally be from Wyndham. We're not going to hold that against him.
That's okay, right?
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. So, Ashton, what's next on the list?
Yeah, and another thing we want to look at is just refinancing your portfolio. Maybe interest rates have been at decade highs. And so we want to make sure we lock in some of those rates as rates are falling. Fed rates are falling. Sometimes those guarantees start falling in different products available. And so again, if there's an opportunity to maybe take some of your portfolio that's at an all-time high, and if it's invested in the market, and refinance that into something that's paying a high interest and locking in those high interest rates before they start to decline.
Yeah. With interest rates going a little lower, you're going to want to look at, if you have a bunch of money in, say, CDs or in a savings account, you might want to look at other safe money options, right? Where your principal's protected, but the interest might be a little bit higher. And there are a lot of strategies that you have that you help your clients work with.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got some multi-year guaranteed products.
Yeah.
Act very similar to a CD as far as guaranteeing an interest rate over a certain period of time. And a lot of times it's higher than that.
And you can get principal protection there too.
Principal protection.
Just like a CD.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Just like a CD. A lot of times we look at like 5-year products where we lock in these higher interest rates for a little longer because as interest rates go down, those CD rates go down and our guarantees start to go down. So it's nice to lock some of that money, again, not all of it, up into some longer higher interest rate environment.
Yeah, that's where we get into asset allocation
For sure.
And
Yeah.
so, we'll get into that a little bit, but you're right. It's important to have those safe money options, but also make sure your money is working for you, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Or earning as much as possible.
Yeah. We want to make sure your money works hard for you. You've worked hard for your money your whole life.
Yeah.
We want to make sure you're getting that money to work hard for you as well.
Exactly. All right. So that's important. What's another thing on this list you want to talk about?
Yeah. So kind of along the same lines of that required minimum distribution is QCDs, qualified charitable distributions. This has changed a little bit over time. It used to be at 70.5. It still is at 70.5, I should say. A lot of times that was RMD timeline, but they did leave charitable distribution at 70.5. And so if you're that age and you've got some charitable giving that you're doing, you can do it through your IRA and it can be tax-free for you. And so you're not going to pay income tax on it as long as it goes to that qualified charity for you.
So if I am of the age where I'm required to take distributions out of my retirement account, like a traditional IRA.
Yep.
Instead of taking that distribution and paying taxes on it, if it's not something I need for myself for income and I don't want to have to pay taxes on it, the one option I would have is this QCD or qualified charitable distribution.
Yep.
And that would, like, I know my parents are of RMD age,
okay,
and they tithe 10% to their church a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And they tithe a certain amount to their church. But instead of writing a check like they have been, they could just use some of that RMD and send it directly to the church or to the nonprofit or charity.
Whatever charity.
Yeah. Any charity. And then they wouldn't have to pay taxes on that money rather than use after-tax money. And they would save that. Plus, the church still gets all their money tax-free, right?
Correct. Yeah. And so it's a great way. A lot of my clients, I ask them when they're getting to be that age, hey, are you doing any charitable giving? And I give to my church every month or week or whatever it is. And I say, hey, instead of doing that with money you're paying taxes on, let's take it out of that IRA. Give it. A lot of times we do it as a one-time.
Once a year.
Yeah. Once a year lump sum to it. And, it could be equal to that dollar amount or even more because now you got that tax savings.
Yeah.
And so it's a win for everybody.
Yeah.
Because now the church is getting a little more money. Uncle Sam's not getting as much. And it's just a win for everybody to do it that way. And you still get your standard deduction for most people.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't affect your standard deduction. You don't have to itemize to
You don't have to itemize.
That's a great point. Yeah. I never thought of that. Yeah.
Otherwise you've got to give over 30,000 to, for a married couple.
Yeah.
To have to be able to itemize. And most people aren't giving that much. And if you are, we have strategies for that as well. But again, it's a great option for, if you're giving a couple grand, $5,000 a year to the church to be able to do it tax-free out of your retirement account.
Yeah, that's huge. And it doesn't have to be the church. My parents, it is, but maybe for you, it might be a charity. I know right now food banks are there are a lot of different charities that provide meals that are looking for input, especially during the government closure. So now toward the end of the year might be a good time to think about some of these things.
Yeah. I've got clients who give it to the local fire department, hospitals.
That's great.
All kinds of different organizations are in need. And if you don't need that distribution, it's a great way to give that's going to reduce your taxes.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's a great year-end thing to think about. And charitable distributions, and maybe it's on your list, but we kind of got into, tax planning before the end of the year, which all of these things. And if your end of the year financial planning is like, oh, you mean tax planning. So what's next on the list?
Yeah. And I guess we can kind of dive into that, and it's all going to come back to that tax planning. And so Roth conversion is another thing we talk about.
Explain what that is.
Yeah. It's basically we can take traditional IRA money.
Yep.
And we can move some of it into a Roth IRA, and we're going to pay taxes on it. You may say, well, Ashton, I thought we were trying to avoid
taxes,
paying taxes.
Now you're going to up my tax bill for the year. What are you talking about?
And what we try and do is fill the lower tax buckets there. Depending on everybody's situation, it's a little different, but maybe we have $10,000 before we jump from the 12% to the 22% tax bracket. And so we can kind of get that money out at a discount, if you want to call it that.
Sure.
by paying 12% instead of 22% on it. And so maybe we convert $10,000, pay the tax on it. And now we have that money growing tax free.
Knowing it won't bump us up into a higher tax bracket.
Correct. Yeah.
And taxes are low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't know what taxes are going to be 20 years from now. And so, it's an opportunity to move it into that tax.
We're at historic low tax brackets right now. And even though they made them quote unquote permanent, that's permanent until the next election. That's permanent. Right. And you never know what'll happen then. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's a great opportunity to do that. And again, when you convert it to the Roth, it's going to be that tax-free growth. And so you convert that $10,000 and maybe 10 years down the road, it's worth $20,000.
Yeah.
And we don't have to take the RMDs, required minimum distributions, out of those Roths. And so
that way it continues to grow and you get that compounding interest, and that's going to be tax-free at that point.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you want to pay, it's the old analogy, do you want to pay taxes on the seed or on the harvest? If you had a choice, I can do one or the other, I'll pay it on the seed because I know it's going to be lower.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, another time we look at this too, Tony, too, is, a lot of my clients I meet with, they're like, hey, my kids are very successful and they're proud of it. And that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But that also means they're probably in a higher tax bracket.
Right.
And so, do we take an opportunity now to convert some of this money from the traditional IRA to the Roth so it goes tax free to the kids? So the kids aren't paying that higher tax bill when they inherit the money. So
enhanced planning or estate planning or legacy planning, think down the road, think of what situation you want to leave your loved ones in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they do have options when they inherit those IRAs to take it over 10 years. But again, if your child is in a higher income tax bracket than you, it may make sense to pay Uncle Sam at your tax rate rather than have your kids pay at that tax rate.
Sure. It seems like the more we talk about this, Ashton, you bring up more variables. If this, then this. If this, then this. It's like programming language, or it can get complex, but that's why you're here. That's why you have a job, and that's why you help people, is because you could make some really costly mistakes.
For sure.
And you look at all these variables like, okay, what's your legacy plan? What's your time horizon? What is this money going to be used for? Are you going to need this money to live on? If so, we can leave it here. What's your tax situation? How close are you to that next tax bracket? What's the room you have between? So all of these things, the average person isn't thinking about, I don't know how much room I have between the tax bracket I'm in and the next one.
Yeah.
But
probably not much.
Ashton, my side from the laughter. Oh, Ashton, funny guy. So what's next on the list? What else do you have?
Yeah. And, we want to also, when we sit down and do our reviews, whether that's year end or annual review, you want to make sure you get your beneficiaries listed correctly. It's very important, whether that's divorce, death of beneficiaries, whatever it may be, that we have the correct beneficiaries listed.
Sure.
For everybody, because if something happens to you, you want to make sure it goes to who you intend it to.
Yeah. I think that's really good. Beneficiary designations are something that people should probably review once a year, right?
Yeah.
You've told me that before.
Yeah.
You've mentioned that on past shows. So a year-end checklist item is check those beneficiary designations. What can happen if you don't? Give us an example.
We've all had the ex-wife listed as primary beneficiary on a life insurance policy, even though they haven't been married for 10 years.
Yikes. And you've seen that happen.
I've seen that happen. And it's not pretty if something were to actually happen. A lot of times we catch it before it does. I sit with the person, meet with them.
Yeah.
Their accounts with me, we usually do a very good job when it's the outside stuff.
You review those regularly with your clients.
Yeah. And we keep an eye on, obituaries, who's with us, who isn't. And so we update those on a regular basis. And then I do ask about outside beneficiaries, but they don't always have that information in front of them with that 401k plan, that type of thing. So again, just making sure you have beneficiaries and they're who you want.
You have to have beneficiaries listed, and you should have them on all your accounts. One thing my wife and I learned and did recently, we didn't know this, and I think you had mentioned this on a show, is that you can put beneficiary designations on your bank accounts and your house.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. On your real estate and home and bank accounts. And you just have to physically go to the bank, get a form and sign it, and they'll notarize it and list the beneficiaries. It's a beneficiary form for any kind of account, a savings, a checking.
Yeah. And it's one that for whatever reason, that one's often overlooked. And again, when we're doing that more estate, end of life planning, I guess, it's one thing we look at. And again, it's not an account held with me, but I'm like, hey,
No.
most checking accounts don't have a payable on death.
Right.
Most savings account don't have a payable on death. And so then they make sure they go out and get that added.
Yeah.
You mentioned the real estate as well. And so we can do transfer on death deed as well.
Yes.
So that way it doesn't go through probate. Probate, sometimes a naughty word or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it can be expensive.
Can be expensive.
And it can be time lengthy. So if you care about your family and don't want to leave them a headache and you want them to get the money or the property or whatever right away, you don't want it to go into probate because it's going to cost extra for attorney and court fees. And it takes a long time. It can take a couple of years even.
Yeah, it can. And depending on how sticky the situation is, it can take up to a couple of years, 6 months to a couple of years.
Whereas typically, if you have a beneficiary designation,
typically, I like that.
Yeah, it depends on the company and the thing you were talking about. But 401ks and bank accounts, it's usually instant. But not everything. Some insurance policies take longer for. Yeah, death benefit claims are a little different.
Yeah, everything's a little different, and a lot of times with a death certificate, we can process most things pretty quickly. Again, life insurance claim might be a little longer. Than that. But. Yeah,
that's important, and you're right. And I think the reason some people might say, "Well, I have a will, and I spelled it out clearly, and I just updated my will. I don't need to worry about my beneficiary designations." Yeah, but you do still because
you do. That will is actually activated in probate court.
Right. And beneficiary designations take precedent over a will. And that has went all the way to the Supreme Court. I read that.
Yep. Yeah. And that's why it's so important to list the beneficiaries the way you want. Another thing I get a lot, Tony, is, oh, Tony's the oldest. I'm just going to leave it all to him and he'll figure it out. There can be some tax consequences to that, and then
family disharmony,
family disharmony, and Tony. I know Tony. He's not gonna give it to his siblings. No, I'm just.
No, that's my new pizza and record budget. I can buy some more vinyl for my music collection and hit a few more pizza buffets.
Yeah.
No, and so let's see. Do I give it to my sister or do I eat out every night this week? No, I'm kidding. Actually, but. Yeah, that is a serious concern, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, it's very common. I sit down with a family, and they say, "All right, who do you want to list as beneficiaries?" And I said, "Oh, Joe. We're going to list Joe." Okay. Do you have any other children? Yeah, but Joe will divvy it up to the children, and then we have the conversation that, for tax reasons, for family harmony, it's best to list it truly how you want it to be for the beneficiaries.
If you want it equal between all three kids, just list it that way.
Just list it
you
that
can
way.
List it that way. Split evenly between these 3 or 2 or 4 or 5
or maybe they leave Tony out of it completely.
Well, I was actually going to go the other way with that, Ashton.
Give it all
and
to
tell our listeners that if there are some listeners out there who say, "Well, I don't have anyone. I want to. I don't know who I would list. I don't have any living children, or I disown my children. I don't want to leave it to my brother or sister, or I have no living relatives." In that instance, it's Anthony Shore, Shore.
Yeah.
I am giving them, to help you out. You can use my name.
I like it.
Yeah.
I was going to make sure that we got legal name out there. So I figured it wasn't Tony, but
it's Anthony T. Shore, middle initial T. Yeah. So I'm just kidding. No. But what's another thing? We have time for one more.
Yeah. And again, it's just important to, I'll cover 2 quick.
Okay.
Trusted contact. So we want to make sure that we have a trusted contact in case we're not able to get a hold of somebody, or maybe their health starts to fail and they're not answering their phone.
And that might change over time because of deaths, births, marriages, divorce. Correct. If things change, everything can change, right?
Yeah, for sure. So it's important to have a trusted contact added to that. A lot of times it's a child or a family member of some sort. But just if we aren't able to get a hold of an individual, someone we can reach out to make sure everything's okay.
Sure.
Yep.
And what's the next thing?
Yeah. And then again, it's so important to get together and do that annual review. I don't always do mine at the end of the year, depending on the client situation. But again, we want to make sure that we get together, do that annual review, make sure everything's on track for our retirement.
Yeah, you got to do that every year to make sure.
Yeah.
At least once a year and before the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could be January or February, but it has to happen before the end of the year.
Yep. Yeah. And sometimes we meet in January just because we can do prior year contributions and the current year contributions, depending on if you're in accumulation phase or distribution phase. But yeah, it's important to get together, see if where we're sitting for income, making sure we do that tax planning. And a lot of this encompasses tax planning. That's typically the most expensive part of anybody's portfolio is what the tax man takes out of it. And so if we can reduce that, that's where we add a lot of value for our clients.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, taxes and healthcare, two biggest expenses people are going to have, right? In retirement, and it's the opposite of what people think. I think I'm not working. I'm not going to pay any taxes in retirement. And I have Medicare. I'm not going to pay anything for healthcare, but it couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another good point, Tony. And I've been saying in our past shows here, recent shows, I guess, is we are in that open enrollment period for Medicare.
Sure.
So if you need help with that, you can call our office, or any questions on any of this year-end checklist. Just give us a call at 952-873-2703. Again, that's 952-873-2703. Visit our website, pankininfinancial.com. That's PANKONIN financial.com. Happy to help you with any of these year-end questions. Make sure we're all on the same page for getting everything done for that tax planning at year end.
Yeah, that's great. No charge, no obligation consultation. I think it's great that you offer that, but I know you love to hear from our listeners and viewers out there, and you love chatting with people in the area. You've helped so many people. Sit down, have a cup of coffee with Ashton.
Yeah. Great
guy. Easy conversations to have. A lot of people put it off because they're nervous, but I know you're just here to help and chat about it. Exactly. That's awesome. Well, listeners, thanks for tuning in. That does it for another episode of Pankinen Financial Perspective with our host, Ashton Pankinen.
Thank you for joining us for Pankinen Financial Perspective. Don't head into retirement without a plan for both your finances and your health. For more information, contact Ashton Pankinen at Pankinen Financial Group at 952-873-2703 or visit PankinenFinancialGroup.com. Join us again soon for another episode of Pankinen Financial Perspective. Advisory services are offered by Ashton Pankinen LLC DBA Pankinen Financial Group, an investment advisor in the state of Minnesota.
All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.